Greetings, brothers and sisters. I made a video on Michael Flynn, and I had something like Michael Flynn's back and he's dumber than ever, and I misspelled dumber. I put two M's, and that was the fodder for QBs everywhere, right? And that's kind of funny, right? I misspelled the word dumb, calling somebody else dumb, so I could understand where people would attack that, and it's kind of funny. So yeah, all right. I get it, but the thing is, I can correct a spelling error, but you can't fix stupid, right? you know, I I often make I have dyslexia, and sometimes I just get lazy and I don't double check the whatever it is, right? Because it's easy for me. There's the misspelled words stand out; they're highlighted on YouTube, and I just forget to double check. I'm just ready to get the video up or whatever. But in terms of the stuff with QBs, like I have a couple of comments to get to, but it's more about I'm going to give you a whole, what happened with the QAnon phenomenon, why it took off, how it was used. I'm going to give you like everything you need to know about the QB phenomenon. Also, I had a number of people commenting saying you fell for heartfulness the same way that QBs fell for QAnon or Q, and I will explain the difference because all this is, a part of that. But let's start here. So this comment is again to the Mike Flynn is back and dumber than ever. And the person writes, "Oh, right. I remember why I stopped listening to you." So what's interesting about this, I've gotten maybe 200 comments with this same basic premise where someone will say, sometimes they'll give a little bit more explanation. I used to listen to you and I came back and then now I know why I stopped. This is a copycat comment. What I call a copycat comment when you get a lot of these comments that are basically the same. And what's stupid about this comment is the person says, now I remember why I stopped listening to you. Well, you didn't stop listening to me, right? Now, like I said, once in a while, a person will give more, context and say, I came back. I was gone, and I came back, and now I remember why I left in the first place. It's just stupid. Like I care, right? Go and stay away. Like, stop coming back. Like, it's not working out between us. I don't even know who the person is. Like, I have no idea. Like, it's not somebody who I recognize them. It's never is. It's just it's this copycat mentality. People can't come up with something original. Like I already said, don't bother saying anything. You're not, right? And I know what the reasoning is because they like Mike Flynn and they don't see what I see, right? They're incapable of seeing what I can see in Mike Flynn. I'll get into what, I see in Mike Flynn, but they'll still not see it because they don't want to see it. And so what you're basically saying is you can't handle the truth, you got butthurt, and you wrote one of these copycat comments. I'm unsubscribing. These ways that people have of just copying what other people say and thinking that it's somehow, they're hitting the mark and they're just, so subpar. Another person with Patriot in their name said, "You're fake news." And I'll get into the difference between being a patriot and being a devotee of God. I've talked about that before, but it has to be brought up. And so the reason that this video is coming about, hopefully this is the comment, the person says, I heard Q was back too. Sounds like the PSYOP started a new season. So the QBs have come back, and that's why these videos are coming out. Somebody left a QB comment, and another person wrote, American patriots are winning their country back with President Trump leading the way. So I want to get into the comparison between the Q phenomenon and the heartfulness system. One's a cult and one's a spiritual organization, and differences. And I'll develop that in just a moment. But first, when Q first began, what the QAnon movement first began, was when Trump gave that very cryptic comment where he said, the storm is coming. And then this person was posting, I guess there was other, this was something that people were doing where they were claiming to have some sort of governmental clearance. And this has been something random people might have been doing, like it's a little unclear how this started in terms of, was it organic or was it a a governmental psychological operation to start with. But someone started posting as Q anonymous, right, at this, someone with Q level security clearance, and they were asking something pretty phenomenal from their eventual followers, and the followers gave it to them. And what was phenomenal about it was a big ask is, first of all, they were anonymous. So if you're going to follow an anonymous person, and again, to the level of, craziness that the cubies have expressed, it's very hard to follow somebody anonymous and trust them, right? And I've said this over and over again. There's just basic things. They could be replaced at any time. Like, you don't know who it is, especially in the world of catfishing. Like, the internet now exists with catfishing being, one of the major behaviors. If you don't know what catfishing is, it's pretending to be somebody you're not, right? And people do it to their friends. I mean, it's something that happens all over the internet. People have fake internet accounts and pretend to be somebody they're not. So if you don't have a name or a face or any sort of accountability, you just have somebody claiming something that they have, no real way of proving to you that they have Q-level security clearance in the government. And that's another big ask, because the demographic that they were courting, the people who they were trying to, win over, were extreme right-wing, often very anti-government people who were really against the spy community, the NSA and the CIA. And this person's claiming to work for them, right? And they also were saying that they wanted to use the surveillance state, which most of these people are against and should be. All these patriots, right, all these right-wing people that should be against the surveillance state, that should be, against martial law and secret military tribunals, who are anti-government and anti the spy community. And this person who claims to be a spy, if they were actually a spy, are they a double agent? All these things. And anonymous is asking you to trust them, and trust them in a way that got crazy, like people getting trust the plan, right? Now, this is a huge ask from the demographic. Like, it's so bad. You got work so bad if you're a QB. I mean, it's hard. It's so freaking bad, man. I mean, it's something that went against your whole belief system, and they conned you. They totally played you and worked you and got you to go out there and say, oh, we should have secret military tribunals. I mean, just think about, just from everybody else's perspective, because you've lost family members and relationships and jobs and things. People are going to jail because of this. I mean, people got worked so bad, right? Like, they don't even know how bad they got worked. I mean, it's just like the embarrassment that should come from people who have been played by Q and this stuff. Like, just, embarrassment is the correct emotional response to what you've been through, like falling for this thing, right? Like how hard you fell for it. I mean, just, oh my God, so bad, right? That somebody who comes out as being anonymous and then working for the government and giving you, nothing really, and saying, trust the plan, and putting out crazy ass stuff and you buying into it. And at least you should have the common decency to realize how crazy the thing sounds, even if you get hooked into this cult, and, make it better somehow for other people by verbalizing the craziness of it and not being like complete assholes, right? Attacking other people, spamming them, just, the arrogance behind these people who fell for this, the complete arrogance. And the reason that happened, well, there's a few reasons why they fell for it. The first part was, they were realizing America wasn't what they always thought it was, because that's part of being in the truth community. Like, they started to realize that there was some, and they weren't really ever in the truth community. And you can see that because a lot of them, when they wake up to the way they got played by Q, they don't become better truthers. They go back to the beast, right? They go back, they do interviews, and, they come out and they go back to the mainstream news and narratives, and they swear off conspiracy theories, and they, they don't graduate up into being a real truther, right? They don't become a real boy. They just go back into sheepledom. They were never really truthers, but they start getting access to some of this information that we all do. And they can't, they're so into being patriots. They're so into America being great, America, the whole make America great again. And they have to separate the government and the issues that are there into something called the deep state, right? I mean, it was just tailor-made for them. And that there's a good bunch of people, a good bunch of Americans who are trying to set things right because they're desperate to save the system. And this happens across the board. It happens in the heartfulness meditation. Like there's these prophecies and predictions, and most people in the heartfulness meditation ignore them completely. Like the things I talk about here regularly, they don't want to talk about at all. And I think they pretty much don't want me to talk about it. So this is a psychological phenomenon that is out there. I mean, you've dealt with people in your life, and you can present, information to them, and they just won't see it. This is something that's happened my whole life. I just got used to, like it happens across the board. Like I'm dealing with right now in the Heartfulness organization. I deal with it, of course, with this YouTube channel, and just people in my life, and I just don't care anymore. I present the information because it's my duty. It's my job. I've become good at this. I've been made into doing this thing. I present the information and then, I let it go. It's up to other people to take it or leave it. It's not my problem anymore. I've done my duty, right? That's, it's so much more relaxing, when I adopted the just let it happen. You do the work and leave the results to God. Also, people have freedom of choice. So they either take it or leave it. I mean, in your family and your, community or whatever it is. But you had these QBs who were waking up to some extent to the negative aspects of the system, but not being able to see the system for what it is, not being able to see America for what it is. They put too much stock in, there's too much history between them and their families in America, and they just love America so much. Some of them were waking up because of the pizza thing, and they just really wanted to save the children. So they were desperate for someone to come along and provide a solution. They had a problem. Our system sucks and it's going in like a demonic, satanic direction, and they needed a solution. And because they couldn't say, all right, the system should collapse. Like everybody has to come to terms with that. Very few people do. Like it sucks for me as much as everyone else, right? I'm not psyched about the system collapsing. And I know more than most of you because I've homesteaded and I understand this and I've been doing this for a while, what, we're going to be facing once it does collapse. It's not going to be it's not going to be great. It's going to suck, right? And, I understand that. But accepting what is, accepting, this is just the way it's supposed to go because the system sucks. And sometimes systems collapse. Sometimes civilizations collapse. It's happened throughout history. And your material life goes downhill. Like it just goes from wherever it was based in the civilization to, not that way anymore, not good anymore, right? Something becomes way harder because the system is doing so much for everybody. And so as bad as the system is, it's provided for us a kind of a lifestyle that we're all addicted to in one way or another, and that, that's going to go. But the QBs couldn't deal with that reality. They needed a solution. They were desperate for a solution. They were desperate in so many ways. They were desperate about the, child trafficking stuff. They were desperate about America, the way it was going, and, it was just too hard for them, especially the far right-wing people that, who this QB stuff pandered to. And so they were willing to give this big ask of trusting somebody who was anonymous, who said they worked for the government in this, in the surveillance state, in the intelligence community. And, they were willing to go pretty far into this thing and exhibit very bizarre behaviors. I mean, go full extremism and really buy into this thing. I mean, jumping in, like diving into the deep end of this thing, right? Not sticking a toe in the water. I mean, just betting everything on this idea, this person, this anonymous person. Another piece to this was talking in very vague and abstract terms. If you're going to, go against your security clearance and reveal information, then go all the way. But don't do these abstract ways of, these cryptic messages and saying, I need your help. We need your help, Junior Q detectives. Go to your box of Fruit Loops and dig out the bottom and you're going to find this, this QB decoder ring and go in there and help. help decode these messages. You can do it, you little QBs. And so, I mean, all of that was a big ask, right? Again, like you could, make a case for people being desperate and wanting to believe and sticking their toe in the water, but at least, trying to save face a little bit. But they came in strong. Like they came in and they wrecked the truth community. They put out crazy videos. They made stuff up and they spammed people. Anybody who disagreed with them or didn't, you were a shill or you were part of the problem. They put wild accusations out there, right? I mean, it was so sucky to deal with them. When QB showed up, and they're showing up again, this is why I'm making these videos, get out. You're not welcome here. Like, you got played, you got rolled, you got fooled. You should be embarrassed, you're not. Again, like it should be over, but it's not. Like you fell for something, and you have no one but yourself to blame. You couldn't handle the truth as it is. You had to, make something up because of your false patriotism, and you got rolled. And so what happened was, I mean, they think that Q made some right predictions, but, like I've seen no evidence of this. But I know of all the wrong predictions and all the moving goalposts. And the QB's just like the Great Pumpkin. Let me play the Great Pumpkin thing right here.
Dear Great Pumpkin, I'm looking forward to your arrival on Halloween night.
So first he takes a hit off the hopium pipe.
Pumpkin patch, and you'll see the Great Pumpkin with your own eyes.
And then he tries to get his bitch hooked on hopium.
Sitting in a pumpkin patch with a blockhead. You owe me restitution!
Then his bitch realizes she's in love with a hopium addict and she wants her Skittles. She's been cheated out of her Skittles. And now his sister, who sees that her hopium addict's brother is strung out on hopium, has to go and retrieve him from the pumpkin patch.
I've done a lot of stupid things in my life, too.
Stupid? What do you mean, stupid?
You sat in a pumpkin patch all night long waiting for a pumpkin man to rescue you. It's high on hopium, and he never came. That's what we mean by stupid.
Just wait till next year, Charlie Brown. You'll see. Next year at this same time, I'll find a pumpkin patch that is real sincere.
But after all the evidence has been presented that Q, the Great Pumpkin, doesn't exist, is not going to save you, still in denial, lashing out, angry, waiting for the next hit off the hopium pipe. So many of the QBs got caught waiting for the Great Pumpkin in the, non-sincere pumpkin patch. And, it... I mean, it's a great analogy. And he never came, right? He never delivered. And so, and they promised things about Trump, and JFK Jr. wasn't really dead, and he was also running things. And Mike Flynn, who was, who somebody was a nightmare in the Iraq War. I mean, the guy isn't a good guy. He's not smart. He talked back to Obama, so people thought, oh, wow, he's a hero. And then he, misled people to believe that he was part of the Q thing. And then he said there is no plan. And then he came back and said, oh, we should have some sort of coup like they had in Miramar. He just said that. Like he just, is dopey, right? He's bailed on you multiple times. He's denounced Q. Trump pretended that he didn't know anything about it, even though he fed into it. And then he bailed on all of the QBs after January 6th, even though he helped to provoke them. He played them. He worked them. Trump showed over and over again he is a person of poor character and very self-centered, and that he wasn't going to save America. His presidency was marred by the left taking more and more of, the social agenda and the cultural agenda. I mean, just across the board, even though Trump was president, all the movement that happened during his presidency was the left taking more and more, the extreme left. And everyone was waiting for the Great Pumpkin to save them, and it never did, right? And so after giving this big ask, like giving into this, anonymous person and trusting them and going full in and just, pissing everybody else off and just spamming like all this stuff, the way you treated other people, the arrogance and just all of it. Like you were so right and everyone else was so wrong. And then all of the promises, like thousands of unsealed indictments and, all the promises along the way just completely collapsed when Trump lost the election, and then all the election debacle. And then, the stuff with Sidney Powell and them getting sued and Lynn Wood, like this incredibly dopey person coming out and being a Q evangelist, and Q being like, people leaving their religion to follow Q. I mean, just all these things that you guys got worked on, and then Trump disavowing you, and then it just should have come to an end, right? A lot of the QBs were embarrassed, the whole hopium thing, because you wanted hope, right? You wanted to believe that the system could be saved, and you got this hopium. And probably the biggest thing they said over and over again, with all the ways the media talks about QBs and the government talks about QBs and QAnon being, dangerous and all these things, they never once went after Q. They haven't tried at all to find out who Q is. There's been no investigative journalism to figure out who Q is. I know there was something on HBO, I didn't get a chance to watch it, where the guy was in search of Q, but it was, didn't find him or whatever he found, right? And so why wouldn't the government go after this cult leader? They always go after the leader, but instead they were going after the followers. It didn't make any sense, because obviously they were the cult leader. The intelligence community was Q. Like, they're not going to go after themselves. I mean, it's just so obvious, right? Like, how can you not get it? Like, it's just, how can you, like, even now not see it? You got worked so freaking hard and bad. And then all this anger and butthurtness, and you're still leaving comments on my channel and whatever, right? Like, when you should be doing is apologizing and talking about how embarrassed you are. Not that I want that. Like, I don't want that. Like, you should be doing that for yourself, apologizing to everyone in the truth community, because the truth community has been completely compromised by you guys. Not just by you guys, but by the Trumpers and the QBs and the people on the right, and then just people in general making up things and sharing them and promoting disinformation out there. So now that the truth community has been wronged so much that it's just like the mainstream media. And most of it comes from people blaming the elite and thinking that America is essentially good and that we're all essentially good and we're not part of the problem. And that if you got rid of the elite, you could, make the system good and whole. And it's not. It's not a good system. It's a bad economic system, bad religious system, a bad culture, a bad, approach to life, a greedy approach to life, a materialistic approach to life. And it lacks any sense of divinity, taking us away from God and ultimately our families and everything else, the pursuit of happiness. It's a failed experiment. And, it sucks to be in the part where it collapses. And that's what we're in, right? It sucks. It's not, on a material level, on a spiritual level, it has unbelievable potential in terms of people evolving spiritually. But you have to, find gratitude in this and accept the, cold slap of reality. And most people can't. Most QBs can. And so that's why they're still floundering and trying to rearrange reality to figure out a way to keep hopium alive. Keep hopium alive! And so, to these comments that I received where people are saying, well, you fell for the heartfulness system the way the QBs fell for Q, it's completely different. It's like polar opposite. So in the heartfulness system, you receive transmission and cleaning. And if you don't do the system, if you never try the system, you can't judge it. Like, you can't say anything about it, because you haven't experienced the effects of the cleaning and the transmission. Now, if you started it, you tried it, and it didn't work, well, that'd be something, right? Because it didn't work for you, but it has worked for other people. But at least you would say, you could say it didn't work for me. That would be true, right? It's like you go to a restaurant. Let's say you didn't go to a restaurant, and you critique it. You write a critical review without even, experiencing the food. I mean, I get people who leave critical comments on the title alone, or they watch the first minute or two, and I can tell they didn't watch the video because they don't know what they're talking about. And yet they think they should criticize it, right? Because they immediately know everything that's in there without ever watching it. It's stupid. Like, so you have people all over the internet like this, all over the world, that think they can criticize something without diving into it. Like, I go into things. I find out when I cover something here, I find out what their point of view is, what their belief system is. I know what the official story is, or the people's story that I talk about here. And so, I wouldn't do it if I didn't, right? Once in a while, maybe there's some details I don't know, and so I could make a mistake that way. But at least I dive into it a little bit. So people criticizing the heartfulness system without trying it, it's an experiential system. There's no blind faith. The masters of the system are practitioners of the system. They were people like me and other people who do it, who do the meditation and eventually become the master of the system. So they're actually like, the hair club for men, right? They're not only the president of the company, but they're also a client, right? And so they all have done and do the heartfulness system, and they are not anonymous. They have jobs, they have lives. It's not some anonymous person that's looking for blind faith. In fact, blind faith, the current master of the system, Daji, the president of the heartfulness system, his big initiative is to have people meditate with and without transmission. There's videos in it, and he has the trainers do that. This is a switch in the system. It hadn't been done before, but it was something that I found, works wonderfully. And these videos, he had people meditate and then without the transmission, and then meditate with the transmission, and then them seeing the difference. Like them seeing, which was better for them. Literally giving people a taste of the transmission and the services. And again, these are free services that are offered. So you can experience it for yourself. And for me, I can say 100% I'm a more loving person. And I was totally not in touch with my heart when I was 29, 28, my first 28 years of my life. Maybe as a kid, I was more than, later on. But I wasn't thinking about my heart. I didn't, value my heart, not my, physical heart, my etheric heart. But my heart has developed under heartfulness. I have a better heart, a relationship with my heart, right? I'm using my heart as an instrument. I understand reality. A lot of the information and insights I get from this, in this YouTube channel, all of them in one way or another are because of my heart developing and having a spiritual relationship and having a deeper relationship with God. All of those things has grown under the system, the heartfulness system. I've benefited in so many ways. I'm a better person, less angry, more tolerant. All the higher qualities have grown. Like I've, better character qualities have grown, and the, negative ones and negative emotions are less. And so I can say the system has worked 100% for me. Everything that is promised, and they're not really promises, everything the system says it does, it's done for me. And so, yeah, it's been effective. It's changed my life and changed me. Not my life. It's changed me for the better. And I'm very grateful for the system. And so for my personal experience of the system, I didn't fall for blind faith. The religions ask for blind faith. Religions say they'll promise something for you after you die. Don't worry, after you die, you'll see it. After you die, you'll know, right? And then they die, and really the promise ends up being a false promise, but then it's too late. The heartfulness system delivers today when you start it, or it doesn't deliver based on your experience, and you can make a decision whether it works or not. Another thing is the heartfulness system isn't political. It doesn't ask people to go out and protest and do any sort of things, cultish things. Again, people can donate and do volunteer work and things, but that's up to them. The system is free, and you're free to come and go and leave whenever you want. I myself have quit a couple times, kind of, not really. Going through something that was upsetting, some sort of cleaning, because there's cleaning. There's unpleasant things in the heartfulness system. That's another thing. The heartfulness system doesn't promise joy, doesn't promise happiness. Somebody wrote me a long comment saying that, what happened to my daughter recently. My daughter committed suicide and my divorce, and saying how the heartfulness system failed me because all these bad things happen. The heartfulness system doesn't say bad things aren't going to happen. In fact, there are 2 maxims. So there are 10 maxims of the heartfulness system. They've recently been updated. They've been changed a little bit for more modern language. They were written in the 40s. But Maxim 5, always be truthful. Accept miseries coming from God for your own good and be thankful. And so this is where miseries are going to come. And you should look at the miseries, in terms of doing the heartfulness system, as being a blessing. The way it used to be worded was miseries as divine blessings. And so this was, one of the things that I knew right off the bat. Another one is, if you are feeling wronged by anyone, do not wish for revenge. Instead, think this comes from God and be grateful. So 2 things here. Be thankful for miseries and for bad treatment from other people. And that all comes from God and not these people. And it's there to expose things in your system. This is what the teachings say, that need to be cleaned out. So they're actually doing you a service, helping to clean out grossness, spiritual grossness. If anger comes out or hatred comes out, then you find it in your system, and you say, I got to get rid of this. I got to clean this out, right? And you realize you have some hatred or anger in your system, and then it gets cleaned out. And so in a cult or in a religion or in the QB cult movement, there are promises made of a better life. Like everything's going to be great. And this is what religions do. They promise you, a good life, a good afterlife and things. The heartfulness system doesn't do any of those things. It says you're going to have miseries and be grateful for them because it's part of it. The masters of the system had lots of troubles and miseries and difficulties. So when people say, well, your life has been difficult, and so the heartfulness system isn't helping you, Paul, it did help me. It helped me get through it, right? It helped me endure the miseries. It helps me endure negativity. It helps me endure what I'm seeing out in the world now. It helps me be patient. It helps me be optimistic that this is, part of God's plan, that there's reasons for this, right? If you believe in God, you believe God has a plan. In terms of the trust the plan for Q, there is no, governmental plan. Even Michael Flint said there's no plan. But if it was, it would be a man-made plan. And man-made plans, there's a saying in the heartfulness system, man makes plans and God laughs, right? And this is, a famous saying, not just for heartfulness, that God has a plan. Like, your soul has a plan. And your ego has a different plan, and that's where you get disappointed and butthurt and all these things. And in fact, right off the bat, one of the first books you read, well, those maxims, right? Going back to these maxims, there are, there's two prayers. There's the universal 9 o'clock prayer where you pray for your brothers and sisters all around the globe, all around the world to find spirituality. And then there's the mission prayer that you say before you start to meditate. And then there's these 10 maxims. That's about it, right? Like the 10 maxims are suggestions and, whatever they are. And 2 of them are about dealing with miseries. And they're all, there's, Maxim 10 has stuff in it to do with this as well. So a number of these maxims are about accepting life the way it is and using these negative experiences to grow spiritually, that they're blessings. Miseries is divine blessings. And within the heartfulness teachings themselves, one of the first books you read is called Reality at Dawn. And there is a chapter, the last chapter is called My Vision, written by Babaji, the second master of the system, Ramchandra. And what he says in there is that the world of the future will be built on the bones and ashes of the past. Our world will be like the bones and ashes, like you see in the Terminator movie where the robots are rolling over all these skulls and things like that, right? The bones and ashes of the past will give way to a more utopian type of civilization. And so this materialistic life that we have and system has to collapse for something better to be born. And he says that this collapse is going to be tough. There's going to be a period of time. I mean, there's so many prophecies and predictions here that are in the Whispers of the Brighter World messages as well as the teachings. And again, it's not like a doomsday cult. They don't, they don't say sell all your stuff and move to an ashram or any of these things. In fact, they don't give any sort of advice like this. Of course, you can prepare, you can figure out what you're supposed to do, but there isn't any sense of, we're going to save you from this or whatever it might be. It's just that this change is coming and you have to endure it as best as possible. Pray for your brothers and sisters of the future and that people will evolve based in this. The same kind of evolution I've experienced in my system. And so many other people have become better people, more loving and things like this, have seen significant changes in their heart, and then have this be done on a mass scale when people abandon the materialistic system that's collapsing and become more spiritual in nature. And so, again, those are like the basic promises, and that if you work hard and you work on your character and you do the system and you connect with God and you evolve, then you'll move forward on your spiritual journey, on your spiritual path, and you'll go to a higher level of existence based in the efficacy of the heartfulness system and your work and your contribution. And so, saying that you have to work, not making promises about, false hopium promises about saving the system or saving you on a spiritual level, where you'll be gifted some, seat at the divine table just for joining the organization. In fact, joining the organization, there is no joining the organization, right? People come and go. People have positions in the mission and quit. Like they become part of the, they become a trainer and they do the system for years and then they quit after 20 to 30 years. And there's no, animosity or whatever. If they want to come back, they come back or whatever it is, right? So there's no organization, there's no registration, there's no, in a sense, hierarchy within the system itself. Everybody gets the same transmission, everyone gets the same cleaning, everybody, moves along their spiritual path. And based in your work and how, well you do it and how much you're into it, you'll advance at your own pace, right? Based in, what you put into it and your spiritual talent or whatever it might be. With the big promise being it helps people to endure life's difficulties and just life in general. That it helps, you enjoy your life even more. There's times where I've taken sittings and I go outside after, group meditation where everybody's meditating and there's this transmission given. And I go outside, like I walk outside the ashram. This was specifically in India, but it's happened here in America, even, in my own home, where the world looks like different. The colors are brighter. I mean, some of these sittings, they're transformational just in terms of your mood and attitude and things like this. Where like after the meditation, I'm so appreciative. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so great. And, the world's such a wonderful place. And these aren't like things that I normally feel on my own, right? And so, the system works. And so when people would say something like that, right, compare it to like QB, and Q, which is the complete difference, is that Q doesn't deliver, and the heartfulness system and the masters of the system and the divine hierarchy of the system does, right? At least in my experience. It delivers. It doesn't make false promises. And what it does promise or what it exists for, it delivers on it for so many people. If it doesn't deliver for you, then yeah, of course you could say, I tried it and I didn't like it. That would be a fair assessment. I mean, if you tried it sincerely and, it is whatever it is, right? People have to, some people have to do it for a longer period of time before they start to see benefit. And, you can't try it like one sitting and, not meditate and say, oh, this sucks, right? Looking for a no. I mean, you have to, try it sincerely. But lots of people try it and they quit. Like, I think it was, I when I was a trainer and I saw other people come to trainers as well, it used to be like 1 out of 35 people would stay. So 35 people would try the system and only one of them would stay, and maybe that person quits after a couple of years even, or 5 years. I mean, retention in the system has always been, something of a concern, that people try it and sometimes they like it and they quit anyway. Sometimes they don't feel anything, I mean, I don't know what all there's no like, system of feedback, right? But I know that a lot more people are staying now. Like more people start it and stay with it, stick with it now than in the past. So that's, something that's good to see, right? But if you experience a heartfulness system, like if you do it and you don't feel the transmission or you don't experience benefit, then you would quit. Like there's not much of anything to stay for other than that, right? Like it isn't an organization where there's a big community. I mean, especially in America, the people are nice. Like many of the people are really nice. Some of them aren't. It's just like anywhere else. But in terms of doing the system and experiencing the transmission and cleaning and having it improve you, and you feel better in using it, right? I mean, some people, really like it and it works for them, but they just, they stop practicing. Other things come up in their lives, and they get distracted, and they stop doing it, and then they, maybe they quit because they feel a little bit of guilt because they're not doing the system like they're supposed to. I mean, there's all these ways that people sort of fall out of the system even when it works for them, but it does work for them. But if it didn't work for you and you gave it a real sincere try and you didn't see any benefit, you wouldn't stay. I mean, there's no reason like to stay for, the reason to do it is that you see a difference right now, that you see how it's helping you become a better person, helping you sleep better, helping you get rid of stress. I mean, all of these things. helping you function better. You know, I've done this long enough where I realize that the system has to, your experience of the system speaks for itself. Like I can tell people about it and say, this has worked for me. Don't know whether it's going to work for you, but it's helped me. And then they try it, and then it's between them and God. It has nothing to do with me anymore, right? I mean, it really never had anything to do with me because I'm just, you know, the way you heard about the system. And now you have a personalized relationship with it. And then it, you know, is whatever it is, right? It's going to run its course. And there's going to be issues because, you know, miseries is divine blessings, right? There's going to be difficulties. Everybody's going to go through difficulties. And when you do go through difficulties, like you go through difficulties in life, the heartfulness system, like I said, just helps you get through those difficulties. But when people go through difficulties, when they're not following a religion or not following a spiritual practice or not doing the heartfulness system, they won't blame it on God. They might blame it on God, but they're not, you know, they really can't. But when they do a religion or they do, you know, heartfulness or they do whatever, and they're working with God, they're connected to God, and bad things happen, they're immediately going to blame God, right? Why didn't you protect me from this? Why are you doing this to me? Why did God let this happen? I mean, this is one of the reasons, well, one of the biggest reasons people stop believing in God. Why did God let this happen? Why did God make this happen? And within the heartfulness organization, it doesn't say that it's going to prevent bad things from happening. It's very specific. In fact, my brother just told me a story. He was, you know, with Master Charji at the ashram in Molina, Georgia. My brother's a caretaker at the ashram. And Master Charji, you know, this woman came in very upset and said, how can you believe in a God? And she went on and on. How can you believe in a God that allows all these things to happen? Why does God run this world this way? And Master Charji said, wait, you think God's running this world? Do you think the way the world is that God is running it? Do you think God's in charge of this world, right? I mean, in the sense that there's a plan and, you know, there's freedom of choice. But in terms of the heartfulness system, you know, or anything, anybody looking at it, obviously this is being run by human beings and our freedom of choice and people who control the system. And so if God was running it, he said, if God was running it, the world would look completely different, but there would be no freedom of choice. Because we have freedom of choice, we have the freedom to do wrong. And that's really what the freedom of choice is. Instead of being made by God to make the right choice constantly, which would be robotic, we have the freedom to choose the wrong thing, which we do all the time. And there are consequences. And that's part of the heartfulness system. And so, yeah, that's why the world is the way it is. Because people are choosing to do the wrong thing, go against God's will, go against their soul's path, because God's given them the ability to do that. And so, yeah, you could say that's God's fault, but otherwise there'd be no point. Like if everything was, you know, automatic and everybody did the right thing all the time, then it would just be robotic. There wouldn't be any sense of freedom of choice. And so what the heartfulness system does is help you eventually, even, you know, right off the bat, but certainly more so eventually, learn how to make the right choices. Use your heart to connect with God and bring God into the decision-making process. So you start making the choices that God wants you to make, or the right choice. It's not the one God wants you to make. It's the godly choice, right? There's one right choice, and there's an infinite sea of wrong choices. And the heartfulness system helps someone eventually learn to make the right choice over and over again. And so that's, you know, one of the beauties of the system. But again, suffering and miseries, those are going to happen. It's not preventing any of those things. There's no hopium in heartfulness. There's God and love, right, which are the same things. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.